I want to welcome you all. Thank you for being here. I'm Father Jose. Good morning. Glad you are here today. Yeah, it took a little time to get to that place of making sure everything is going right. And I want to welcome you back into this place and make sure that you are signed in or type in your nickname in the chat. The chat you can see on the left end. And I know I see Babs and I see Teresa and I see Mary. Of course, I don't see you, so do not worry. I just see the names of people who have signed in. And there are other people who are in it but not able to actually sign in for some reason or another. I think that we just need to get used to the how this is working. At any rate, I am grateful that you are here. I hope you are able to hear me now. And if you are not able to hear me now, please put the a link, or just let me know that you are not able to hear, and that will help me to really go into making sure that the audio is on. And so I see Babs and Julia, Mary, Teresa. There are several people who are on, and I want to welcome you all to this study on centering prayer on the divine union. And so before we go into the divine union, and if you're not able to hear, please raise your hand. I want to make sure you're able to hear it. Anyway, so thank you. Thank you for joining me today. And so we begin the day with a prayer, Psalm number 23. Of course, that psalm is something that every one of us know. None of us need to, really, I don't need to speak much about what that psalm is all about. All of us know what that psalm is and how that affects us. That psalm is asking for the Lord to walk with us as our protection, as our shepherd. And so that's exactly where we are going today. The Lord is my shepherd. So please join me in this prayer in your minds. Please join me. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside still waters. He revives my soul and guides me along right pathways. For his name's sake, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table, you spread a table before me in the presence of those who trouble me. You have anointed my head with oil, and my cup is running over. Surely your goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord. And I do want to invite you to remember this. Even though we walk through the valley of death, we will not be affected by anything in the valley of death or struggle or pain that we may have. We will be supported and loved, and the Lord will walk with us today, and with our nation, with the world that is struggling with the issues of this world. And so let us pray that the God gives us the grace to truly trust in the Lord and be united with God in all that is happening around us. And so we can actually give ourselves, our families and our friends, everyone, we could actually trust ourselves to Christ. So that's what I want to invite you today as we enter into the study of the divine union. What is divine union? I think about this often because that's my life, to be fully united with God as a pastor, as a priest. I want to be connected to God, and being lost in God is something that I always desire. I want to be lost in God, and so it is very important for me to speak about this. And so let's go into that, what divine union is. So you are welcome to ask questions or make your comments or raise your hand so that I know that you are fully participating in these conversations. So the divine union roots our whole being in God. And so once I'm connected to God, we are in this divine union, in this connection with God, we are fully immersed in God. And it also leads us to the increasing forgetfulness of the self. I want to say this is the best way for us to actually practice our Christian faith. Earlier today, this week, I spoke about the what do you call, not today, earlier this week, I spoke about dismantling the self. What is dismantling the self? Dismantling the self is letting go of our selfishness and all that we have, who we are and what we are, and all of that is, we are letting go, and then ultimately taking God on our side instead of ourselves as selfish people. That's not where we go. And so here what we are talking about is basically being united with God, completely connected to God, feeling fully aware of God's presence in our lives. And so that's what I want to invite you to today as we enter into. It leads to this increasing forgetfulness of the self. The forgetting the self is the key, and it develops the spiritual senses, all of our spiritual senses as a result of it. When God is with us, all the darkness is gone away. Something like when there is a candle that is brought into the darkness, the light actually spreads instantaneously to every dark corner. When the light comes in, when the candle is lit, when the darkness is removed from us, then we begin to experience this incredible power of God. Now, to do that, it requires that we accept ourselves. That's something that I want you to be aware. To have that divine union with all our selfishness and our failures and all that are going on with us, we still have to accept who we are in our fallenness. Remember the story of two people who were praying in the temple, one up front who said, this is who I am, this is who I am, this is who I am, but I've done the biggest work, the best thing in the world, I give my money away. And then the sinner who is sitting all the way to the back of the temple, who's saying, I am a sinner, I'm lost, I haven't done the right thing. At the end of the day, that's where we all are. We do fail. We have not done things well. We have failed miserably in all kinds of aspects, in our families, in our relationships, in all that we do. But at the end of the day, when you and I, when we are aware how we have failed and how we can change our failure and how we can transform to be better people through the failures that we have, it requires us to actually accept ourselves. So divine union requires that we accept ourselves like the sinner who was sitting at the back of the temple, in the back of the temple, asking the Lord, sharing with the Lord, this is who I am. Can we do that? Now, is that a bad thing to admit that we are incapable of doing the best thing in the world without God's help? And so that's what I want to ask you to do. Be with the Lord, share things with the Lord, and open up yourself to the Lord. And so, feeling totally absorbed in the delight of God's presence. And I think that is a key. Feeling totally absorbed when we give ourselves to God, letting God act in our lives, we give the control to God, feeling totally absorbed in the delight of God's presence. And that's what divine union does, that we go into an experience of being lost. Sometimes you have this experience that sometimes when we pray, when we sit in centering time, some days it feels like we were there for 2 minutes, and some days we feel like that 20 minutes time feels like 2 hours. Why? Because sometimes we are completely absorbed, completely lost in that moment, and we lose ourselves. At other times, because of all the distractions, all the consciousness, the debris on top of this stream of consciousness takes us away from that experience of God, that presence of God. And so divine union, what does it do again? It diminishes our need for human approval. Let us look into that. It removes our need for human approval. We all need human approval. We all want people to tell us, they value us, they approve us, they are happy with us, they are, in fact, thinking about us and worried about us, and all of those things are beautiful. And if we do something good and beautiful, we want people to tell us that we approve you. What you have done is wonderful. I'm happy with you. Your accomplishment is incredibly wonderful. Or you spoke well, or you taught well, or you finished your exam beautifully. Now, all of those things are necessary, that we give such compliments to people. It is absolutely necessary. When a husband does a good job in the house, the husband says, the wife acknowledges that. But much more for a man to acknowledge the wonderful things that his wife does in the house, or a spouse does in the house. I think that is the key. Being able to acknowledge is a wonderful thing to do, but I am not going to depend on that, is the key. That I will not be worried about it. I will not be dependent on that for to leading a good life. And so that's what that means, basically, that I'm inviting you to do. It diminishes our need for human approval and enables us to wait upon God and God's will. We are actually waiting for God to approve. Does God approve? Of course. Tell me what parent, what father and mother doesn't approve what a child does? What parent, what father and mother doesn't approve the wonderful things that you see a child is doing? Of course, when the child does something wrong, we are going to say, yes, that is wrong, but at the same time, I'm going to walk with you. It's the same thing that God does to us. No matter what we do, at the end of the day, the Lord is going to walk with us. So it enables us to, God, divine union helps us to actually trust that God will walk with us. So, this is what brings peace. The divine union does bring peace, and that is the essence of peace. In essence, there is only one thing God asks us, that we be men and women of prayer. And that's where we grow in spiritually. We become men and women of prayer, and that changes us. When we become men and women of prayer, when we spend our time in prayer, and when we are united with God, and that's where we truly are transformed, as people truly are transformed, as what God expects of us to do. So in essence, there is only one thing God asks us, that we be men and women of prayer. And then we are called to be people who are close to God, people for whom God is enough. That's a beautiful thing. We are called to be people who are close to God, people for whom God is enough. Do you think that's enough for you? That God is enough for you in your life, that no matter what happens, no matter what is going on in your life, no matter what you're afraid of, the scares and worries and all those things that are going on in your life, the question is, are you happy with what you have? Are you happy with God in your life? We are called to be people who are close to God, people for whom God is enough. I will not be happy. I'm not satisfied without God. And that is called contentment. When we seek something else other than God, then we are not seeking ultimate peace or love. And we all do that all the time. And we are seeking things to satisfy our need, our greed, not necessarily what is absolutely necessary, what is needed. Many times we are looking for things that we are what we want. And so contentment is coming from our experience, desire, knowledge, wantedness of God. So if you have any questions, please do type them in the chat box. If you are not able to hear, you can always go to there is a link here on top that shows you the YouTube live. And if you go to the YouTube live, you will be able to attend this class without a whole lot of lag behind or trouble. So try that if you're not able to. Anyway, let's go continue this conversation. So Father Thomas Merton says, we are called to be simply people who are content. We are called to be simply people who are content to live close to Him and to renew the kind of life in which the closeness is felt. We are called to be simply people who are content to live close to God. Can we live close to God? Can we experience God's love? Can we believe God's love? Can we actually do something about advancing our spiritual experience of God? And so, yes, the way we do that is by sitting silently in prayer. And when we do that, then we will be transformed. And so I want to say, at the end of the day, it is the divine union that gives us contentment and peace. And so what, according to the philosopher Jacques here, culmination of knowledge is not a conceptual but experiential. All that we know in us is because of our experience of God. I feel God. Such is the promise of the scriptures. Be still and know that I am God. You know, I've heard many times people say this to me, that you got to sit, you got to think about all those things God is able to do. We have to rationalize the experience of God. We got to be able to explain how we experience God, all of those things. But at the end of the day, I want to say God is an experience. God is not a knowledge. Yes, we can understand, we can learn, but at the end of the day, God is pure experience. And so that's what I want to invite you to today. Divine union is that experience of God. And that's how we are changed. And that's how we go into a different place in our spiritual journey, that we seek the experience of God. How do we experience of God? When we still our minds, when we still our bodies, when we are able to quieten our thought process, our physical, every fiber of our being, when it is quietened. And that's the moment when I feel God. And so I want to invite you. That doesn't mean at other times God is not present or available or experiential. With experience of love, kindness, and compassion, we experience God's love. But to make it even larger, better, beautiful experience in life, what we need to do is to simply, absolutely simply experience God in the way that we experience during our time of prayer and silence. So that's what I want to invite you to today. Feel the God who has invited us. Experience the God who is in us, within us. Experience the Holy Spirit who is part of our lives every single moment. Not to be afraid of the things that are going on around us, but enter into that experience of divine union in which we will be transformed. We will experience divine love. So that's what I want to call you to. And that's what we call the divine union, in which our selfishness is gone away. Our selfishness, our fear, everything is resting in God. All this stream of consciousness in which we experience everything but God, we are giving away. We are letting God take control. And so that's what I want to invite you to today, to experience, that when we go into this time of prayer and silence, let us ask the Lord to give us that experience of the experience of God. As we say in the psalm, be still and know that I am God. I think it is one of the most beautiful things. I used to spend time in silence behind the altar. Now, I will sit on the other side of the altar to experience God, to actually go into stillness, because I truly believe in the God as the hiding place. So I considered that as a child who hides from everyone, so that I could be seen by my friend, or I can connect with my friends who are playing with me. I would hide myself behind the altar to be seen by God. That altar became my hiding place. And that's what I want to invite you to. Go into the inner part of who you are, inner room, and present yourself to God. Let God see you, God love you, and God walk with you. And that's my invitation. So if you look on the screen, on this chapel screen, in about, I believe the schedule is, I want to look at that, the schedule at 10:40, we have a 20 minutes sitting time. And if you come on to the chapel, and then just about a few minutes before 10:40, if you come in and you sit and click on the screen that you're looking at, and then at 10:40 the bell will ring, and then three times it will chime, and then go into a total silence. Your screen will go into a silence. You will see the little balls moving around on the screen, and then in about 20 minutes, the bell will ring again. So it is an automatic thing that is set for it to work. So you don't have to go anywhere. But we do have a break between now and until 10:40. So I want to ask you to take a little time, get a cup of coffee, go into a place where a place in front of your screen or with your phone, and then let it play, and the 20 minutes of silence. And then according to the schedule, we will have the second conversation at 11:10 that we'll come back to study. I hope you are able to listen, you are able to hear and participate in this time of study and conversation and prayer together. Be safe wherever you are. I'm grateful that you are here with me to join me in this time of change and transformation and lots of fear for people. But then know that God ultimately is in control. It is God who is with us. And when the Lord is with us, we will be able to actually deal with all the things that are going on. So before we go, as we enter into our centering prayer, we will come back to the centering prayer, silent time. If you are in the chapel, if you go back to prayerchapel.us, you will be able to at 10:40 exactly it is programmed to come live with the bell and then the 20-minute silence time. And I will be sitting here. I will not be on the screen, but you will be able to actually together sit with the rest of the people and then pray together. And so before we go into that, I want to read Psalm 23 one more time so that that will become our, as we begin the prayer, it will become the center of our spiritual transformation and help us to get there. So the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not be in want. Pick the verse that helps you to reflect and enter into the silence. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside still waters. He revives my soul and guides me along right pathways for his name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table before me in the presence of those who trouble me. You have anointed my head with oil, and my cup is running over. Surely your goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I want to tell you, thank you for being here. We have a total of, I want to say, about 14 people from different parts of our city in Springfield. And I know there are a couple of other people from other parts of the state who are attending this day of prayer with us. So I want to pray for all of you. And I want you to know that when we sit in silence, when we experience God, when we are present to God, we can be people who are transformed, dismantling our selfishness. Before you go off, if I don't, some of you do not come back, just remember every Monday at 9 a.m., I'll be doing live teaching on centering prayer for about 20 minutes. I had last few days, I had a couple of 3-4 people attended that, but I want you to put that somewhere in the back of your mind that every Monday morning at 9 o'clock, I will come live on YouTube on the prayerchapel.us, and you are welcome to attend that study. It's about 15 to 20 minutes. That's all maximum we will take, and then we will go into prayer. But I do want to thank you for being here, and we will come back for our time of silence and at 10:40. Now it is about 10:30. That's 10:27. We will come back. Thank you, and God bless.